Welcome back to the LackLuster channel. A few months ago, in early 2023, Lucky 225 reached out and collaborated with me to report on a huge cover-up of an unlawful citizen's arrest and the vicious beating of a homeless man in an act of vigilante justice.
Beat up right outside of our store. Young grown man with a kid restraining him, laying on the floor like almost hogtied. One guy holding him down and this other guy just started hitting him. Someone just ran and kicked him. Two people beating the crap out of him. He just got kicked in the head. I need someone here as soon as possible, please. He's getting beat very hard.
The story involved several officers of the Pueblo Police Department, Doug Cullison, a Pueblo County Sheriff's Office volunteer, and his son, Nate Cullison, an amateur MMA fighter. As always, my two prior reports on this incident can be found in the description and pinned comment to bring you up to speed if this is your first time hearing about it. A lot has surfaced since the reports were made public. For one, the Pueblo Police Department conducted an internal affairs investigation into the savage incident, and their officers' complete failure to investigate the Cullisons. First is Officer Wagner. During the investigation, he reported a conversation that he had with Officer McClellan, where he apologized to the rookie officer that he was training. Officer Wagner felt that he didn't drop the ball, and that he and McClellan did everything right in his eyes. But looking back, he should have had McClellan write a supplemental report to the blood that they saw on the homeless man's face. But he didn't want to step on Officer Baca's toes because it was his case. Essentially, he didn't want to make the rookie question the lack of an investigation, or word things differently in his report than the lead officer, even if it was obviously the right thing to do. Unfortunately, Wagner left the department before the investigation completed, likely transferring to another agency and escaping any punishment whatsoever. The public should never trust him again. The cowardly rookie Officer McClellan provided a memo to Internal Affairs that discusses his conversation with, quote, one of the involved parties who was wearing a gray tank top with gray shorts and glasses. He explained that his mother got punched and spit on, so he came to this location, and when he arrived, he saw the homeless man and his father, Doug Cullison, fighting, so he helped wrestle him down. The vaguely described man happens to be the one that Officer McClellan fist bumps after arriving on scene. Further investigations revealed that the two men have known each other for years, attending the same high school together with a graduating class of only 44, and they're friends on Facebook. The rookie was not punished as a result of the investigation, but his failure to step up and to do the right thing shows his inadequate skills as a leader and inability to serve. The public should never trust him again. You may remember that Officer Baca, a school resource officer, was the lead officer on this scene. After the incident, he was given YouTube links to the surveillance videos, but Pueblo PD insisted that there were technical difficulties in viewing them. This was an outright lie. That's because Baca initially told his supervisor that he messed up, that there was an incident that he was supposed to get video for, and that it's now on the internet. Baca then lied to his supervisor, claiming that he had received the links, but he wasn't able to open them. Later, however, his story changed. In a letter included in the Internal Affairs report, Officer Baca wrote, the day after the brutal assault, he observed several portions of the videos, and despite having the links, he decided to go to Nick's Dairy Cream and request the video in USB format, so it would be easier to tag into Pueblo Police property and evidence. Instead, he got really busy and forgot, failing to obtain the videos on the USB drive, and never entered the YouTube links into evidence either. But if that is the truth, the public should never trust the department, especially considering that Baca's discipline consisted of a warning and having to attend a class on investigations, report writing, and evidence collection. And that's it. Law enforcement officers are already required to complete 24 hours of continued education each year. It is likely that this punishment was applied towards his already required hours, and the public should never trust Officer Baca again. Sergeant Heblinger was the first officer on scene. In his memo, he wrote that the victim was mostly calm and cooperated, that he observed blood on the victim's face and appearing to come out of his mouth, that his cheek appeared to be swollen, and that the victim himself reported that he had been punched. But despite the overwhelming amount of lumps, lacerations, abrasions, and contusions to the man's face and head, Sergeant Heblinger wrote that it appeared that the injuries sustained were consistent with a person falling and hitting their head or or facial area on the cement. This would be true if the person fell and hit their head or face on the cement exactly 28 times, which is the amount of kicks and punches Nate Cullison delivered to the man. He further noted that Doug admitted to detaining the victim and emptying his pockets, but not a single time were the attackers questioned whether they were aware of the elements required to conduct a citizen's arrest, or if they were aware that false imprisonment is a crime. Sergeant Heblinger was then honored on the department's Facebook page during his internal affairs investigation. The department quickly removed the post. He was also caught calling citizens expressing their grievances idiots under a fake name on the department's Facebook page. The public should never trust him again. But despite his complete failure as the supervisor on scene, his only reprimand was a warning and an order to attend a leadership class within the next 6 months. The chief of the department wrote a memo as well, which points out that none of the officers interviewed a single witness, that no officer followed up with the victim to inquire about his extensive injuries, or to ask for the video footage. Instead, the footage was voluntarily submitted from the shop with a note that the video and audio were awful and haunting, and that he hopes that the videos get some charges on the attackers. So who is this chief? And how is he attached to this?
Stephen Noller was recently at the center of an internal investigation for allegations of discrimination and bullying officers.
Despite that investigation, he became the mayor's appointee as police chief.
We've obtained a copy of that executive summary after 10 complaints were filed, discrimination, bullying, those types of allegations. The law firm that you hired to do that investigation found that there were no civil rights violations by Stephen Noller. However, they did find that he broke city policy, police department policy, and that his leadership style was at a minimum divisive. So how did that investigation factor into your decision to name him police chief?
Well, I took it into consideration. I took into consideration the nature of the complaints. And let me be clear that I have read the earlier reports that Chief Davenport did, have read the 110 pages that the law firm did, and viewing them in their totality, I determined that there was nothing in there that would disqualify Chris Noller from being the chief of police.
The results of that full investigation were never released, despite the public being forced to pay $14,000 for it. When asked why it wasn't public information after forcing us to pay for it and accept Chris Noller as the new chief, the mayor claimed it was a personal matter, and that releasing it could have a chilling effect on employee complaints in the future. But as far as the investigation into this incident, the department released an email that was to be read by watch commanders during roll call. The department redacted the email's author, but titled the file Chief's Department Email. I'll let you guys guess who wrote it. Despite everything the chief wrote in his memo, the email claims that he knows that it wasn't a cover-up, because several of the officers have arrested other officers before. But it isn't clear whether Baca, Wagner, McClellan, or Heblinger are included in the officers being referred to. His second reason he knows that it isn't a cover-up is because there were no pictures. No body cams, reports, no witness statements, or anything else. The chief's reasoning here suggests that the absolutely horrendous job the officers did gathering evidence somehow proves his officers didn't cover up the incident. However, we didn't cover it up. See, there's not even body cam to prove that we knew about it. Just doesn't sit well with me. But the funny thing is, not only was surveillance video found that looks incredibly unfavorably towards the officers, but body cam footage happened to turn up right around the time this email was sent out, 8 months after the incident. All the officers just forgot to attach it to the case or something, and the department hasn't released the body cam audit logs. The chief's third and final reason that he absolutely knows that these officers involved couldn't have purposefully covered up this incident is because he knows these guys. So, trust me, bro. But the chief doesn't just know the officers. He's also alleged to know Doug Cullison. Records from 2017 to 2019 show that both Chief Noller and Doug Cullison taught as instructors at the Pueblo County College's Law Enforcement Academy at the same time. And as of April, after my first report on this incident, Doug was still a member at the academy. Speaking of which, the academy's department chair, Matthew Grable, had enlisted into the hiring process to be a patrol officer with Pueblo Police Department. But in September of 2011, his background investigation revealed that he was alleged to be untruthful in his application and was removed from the hiring list. The chief then ego boasts about a post he commented on but is redacted. And with a totally unknown author, thinking like this: the public shouldn't trust the department's investigative process, and you shouldn't trust the chief either, or whoever wrote this garbage. The conclusion of the Internal Affairs report was nearly completely redacted, but one of the key points in the investigation that shows that they have absolutely no clue what the temperature of the public is when they write, "Once the videos were released over social media, public outrage ensued because Doug is a volunteer at the Pueblo County Sheriff's Department and that Nate is an amateur MMA fighter." The sentence shows that they are so far detached from reality and have divided themselves from the public. Because nobody cares that Nate's an MMA fighter. Nobody cares that Doug is a volunteer medic. Public outrage ensued because the individual severely beat the fuck out of someone with zero consequences. And we're supposed to trust these law enforcement officers to keep us safe and to carry out justice. But if this incident shows their quality of service, then only one of two possibilities can be true. A, the officers covered it up, or B, the officers are so blind and obtuse that they can't tell the difference between a beating and someone falling over. And as a matter of fact, after thinking about it, there's a third option, that the younger, lower enlisted officers are too cowardly to step up to do the right thing. But finally, even though Nate admitted to the beating being in retaliation, and both accomplices pleading no contest, Doug and Nathan Cullison were sentenced on September 22nd in a plea deal arrangement in which they pled down felony charges to a third-degree Class 1 misdemeanor assault. They both received 1-year deferred sentences. This means that after about a year of light probation, the misdemeanor will not be counted as a conviction. Their victim, however, is still facing the original misdemeanor assault charges, and if the actions described are proven, then he should be held liable, as any of the officers or their friends are.
And then he started yelling at three of us staff members and just telling us he was Illuminati, and he spit at us. He came back and he struck me. And then he proceeded, then I jumped in the car with the teacher, and he started hitting me. Oh my God. Because he came back and struck me. So yeah.
Okay, so you're saying he came back and hit you after he left?
Yes.
Okay, where is he now?
Teresa Cullison, the first alleged victim, initiated a lawsuit against the homeless man, and it has new claims. Some reports say she was hit, then punched in the face, spit on, slapped, and nobody knew because apparently the elementary school has no cameras. However, the lawsuit now claims that she was struck in the head, and that her truck was spit on. Doug and Nate are due back in court soon, and as these lawsuits are heard, I'll be sure to keep you informed. But none of this story would be possible if it wasn't for Lucky 225, and we have a few more reports to bring you in the coming weeks about other incidents. His channel and website will be linked below, as well as his link to the full, but highly redacted, Internal Affairs report. If you like these reviews, be sure to check out some of the others linked on the screen.